Hello and welcome back to my channel, and in this episode of our Classic Traveller solo campaign, we're going to focus on world creation and specifically the starting world. This is going to be the first world that the characters find themselves following their discharge from their respective services. We've already gone through an extensive character generation process. I have now subsequently updated them to the Imperial Standard Form 1, which is something I've created for myself for my own campaign, which is a summarized service record and a UPP, Universal Personality Profile, readout that we can have as a neat little aid memoir whenever we have any recourse to finding out individual details of each character. I will keep separate sheets as well, maybe tabulating things like if their equipment becomes quite extensive and also it's kind of group based, or if their balance, their credit balances and that type of thing, if they have access to maybe further down the line some other things like maybe some large capital assets like a ship or vehicles and that sort of thing. Again, I'll have them on separate sheets, but this is really just to kind of cover all the bases that we covered in character creation, where we determine things like their age and their sex and their service and their rank and all things to do with their service history. So for example, if we remember our first character, Saria Jonand, who reached merchant, she became fourth officer in her career. She only served 2 terms, but I managed to put down enough information that shows you basically what all her skills are, and if there were any blemishes potentially or merits in her service history. I made a note of her addiction issues, which we went into quite a bit of detail. The fact that there was an economic downturn at the end of her service. And yes, so there's not really much more to say about that, just apart from the fact that I have done that for every character. So we've got Saria first, we've got Bastian, our army captain, we've got Fiora Hessel, our army colonel, and look at all the skills she's got. It's quite a busy personal data form. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. And even Kira, she maybe not achieved that much, but 34 now, but still a reasonably impressive resume. So that being said, I am going to move on to the next step, and as I say, I've created this traveller folder, and if we just go to my summary that I had of the campaign development. So we've created the characters with a party randomly generated. So job done on that. That's a tick. Next stage is to generate the starting world where the characters meet and begin their adventures, going through the planetary stats, determine its ecology and culture, keep a note of any interesting or potential adventure points. Sounds easy. Now this process is great. In Traveller, you're given this world generation process, and from some very just basic stats, you generate a whole picture. And I used to love this process when I was starting Traveller, and when I was refereeing, it was great as well. You could really just go to town and really get stuck into different planets and all the different attributes and characteristics and codes that you were generating. They all interacted, and if you had a bit of imagination, they would just start kicking off each other. You would say, well, why have I got this ocean here, and and then there's not very poor atmosphere, or it was all that type of stuff. And then you could start bringing in all your sci-fi influences. So that's really what I'm going to be doing with this. So like anything that I do, it's rooted in the rules. It's rooted in this book here, and the world generation, which is detailed in this entire section of the book here, called Worlds, and it's got nice little pictures of a world, and this is a bit suspicious. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Hydroponics, maybe. Yeah, on the world. Initially when I saw this, I thought, oh dear, is that the aliens inside these pods? But no, I think this is some sort of hydroponic type thing, when you're on a kind of vacuum world. And we have our standard double page spread, which is fantastic. It shows you all the different pertinent criteria that we will be measuring our generated planet, and embedded within that you have this world generation checklist. Now, so that's that. However, I just want to zoom out just a wee bit at the start and show you my overall, I would call it schematic, because this grid here is our subsector map grid. And what I would like to do first is basically set that up initially, and kind of almost place what our starting world is. And to help me to do that, I have drafted what I call my subsector mapping checklist. And I can go through these steps, and this is my overall control panel. And within this are embedded other sub-checklists and kind of almost reminders to, Brian, make sure you've done that. Right? Why don't you go over here and refer to this particular bit? You can draw inspiration from here, that type of thing. So what I think I'll do is I'll just run through this so that you get an idea of the overall shape, and then we can get stuck into some of the detail, and we can actually start generating first of all the overall subsector to a limited extent, because I don't want to go too far. I want to keep it quite contained and focus on the starting world in this session, and maybe another couple of sessions after this, because this is going to maybe take quite a while, because I'd quite like to get into quite a lot of detail with the starting world to start off with, and then I would like to almost like draw back and see where the characters fit in to the start, and how we can start to integrate them into the campaign. So it's quite a tall order what we've got maybe in the next couple of sessions, but hopefully it's going to be quite an enjoyable experience, because as I say, this is one of the enjoyable, really quite interesting parts of the Traveller system. And I think with some of the amendments that I brought in, some of the help, a bit similar to what I was doing on the character creation, I've got a similar kind of almost like prompts and little tables that I can use just to kind of either resolve things or try to help me and give me some ideas. And I've got this I think what I said in my very first video was I wanted to draw heavily on my 1970s sci-fi influences, and maybe even stretch back into the 60s and whatever. And some of these are timeless kind of sci-fi tropes and whatever, but they're ones that particularly interest me, and I have mechanisms to draw that into this. So I think that might be quite interesting for me to show you that and how it works in practice. Excuse me. So I've got a bit of a frog in my throat from this. I'll just let it take some water. Oh, that's better. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is the starting world, and place the starting world in the center of the subsector map grid. Now, remember I announced this as one of the things that we had to do on video one. And I knew when I was saying that, that's going to sound a bit simplistic. But basically, that's all I'm going to do is actually get our map out, this one. And with my photocopy, it's gone a bit faded, so I don't really have, you know, the little numbers in it. And I can just about see them, but you might not be able to see them on camera. And the simplest thing, because I was doing a little bit of a test on this, and there's no real direct center to this. So the nearest we're going to get, because it goes 10 hexes from north to south, and 8 hexes from west to east. The nearest you're going to get is 0505, which is here, or 0405, which is here. So I'm just going to do a 1d6 and decide 1 to 3 it's 04, 4 to 6 it's 05. So this is our starting world where it actually is on the grid. And the reason I want to put it in the center is because I want to kind of move out from that and radiate out. And the Imperium is either going to be on this side or this side, and maybe encroaching on these other sides. So I'll show you the mechanic I've got. And I also want to keep it almost like out with the Imperium. Or it might actually end up being a member world of the Imperium. But this territory is the frontier zone, and it's not really occupied or owned by the Imperium. It's not officially owned by the Imperium. So I really want to try and keep it well out with the boundary, so it's not sitting right on the edge, say. Okay, so I'll get in fact I better get my shaker out, my official traveller shaker, and we'll find where it is. So it's a 05. So we'll have our starting world here. So that's a good start. Right, back to the checklist. Now moving on to the Imperium. For the Imperium, determine the position and proximity of the Imperium's hegemony. Choose one long edge and randomly select another short edge to establish the extent of Imperial-controlled space bordering the subsector. So again, quite a simplistic thing. We're just going to choose, is it going to be on the right or the left? Because this is the long edge. So it's 1 to 3, it is the left, and 4 to 6, it's the right. So our Imperium is over here. Imperium. And when I'm going to use this as a kind of rough template, and I'll have a nice kind of almost high resolution type copy that I will just draw up myself and maybe color in and that type of thing as the kind of duplicate of that. And I did that sort of thing, I think, with my AD&D one. I think I originally did it in pencil. And I managed to actually, I got these, it's a little story that I got the cartographers, the official cartographers of the setting to kind of, do a bit of their magic and try to make it a bit more spruced up. So I was colouring it in and using pen and that. So I might do the same with this if this is salvageable, or I might just get another sheet, in my folder, and just put it into that. But that's, you don't really need to know the detail on that. And then we're going to check whether we have another short edge. So if we roll a 1 to 3, we will have another short edge. So we do, yeah. So the Imperium is encroaching. And is it going to be 1 to 3 here on the north, or 4 to 6 on the south? So let's find out. And it's here, it's in the north. So the Imperium, you could just view that the Imperium is kind of surrounding this area of space. So it's not just on this side, but it actually surrounds this bit, and it kind of this is kind of contained in that zone. Okay, so that's stage 2 done. Subsector world occurrence. Perform the initial seeding of the planetary systems by populating the hex up to two hex tiers outward from the starting world. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we are going to populate these systems in this, what I call tier 1, which is 1 hex out, and tier 2, which is 2 hexes out. So we'll the way you do star system determination is that if you get a 4 to 6 on each hex, you will get a star system. And if you get a 1 to 3, it's empty space. And each of these hexes represents a parsec, which I think is 3.26 light years. So it actually is quite a large area of space. You know, I think in my Star Force Alpha Centauri, that's like about 50 light years wide. So, you know, basically it'd be, the map board would be a bit larger than this. So it's quite a large area of space. We were talking over 30 by 20, maybe 26 or something. 33 by 26, I think it works out. So, you know, quite a big area of space. So you'd expect maybe to have, well, based on that probability, a 50-50 population of star systems. So let's actually do the hard work on that. So we'll get our black traveler dice for tier 1, and we'll start here in the top one. So we get a 4, so I have a system. And the next one, we have a system. So a bit cluttered just now. And the next one, we don't have a system. So this one, and we don't have a system. And this one, we do have a system. So put that in there. And this one, we do have a system. So lots of nice, there's loads of star systems round about. So that's us done. So we'll put a big circle here just so that I know I can differentiate and I don't get confused. We've done tier 1. So we move out 1 and we start doing tier 2. So, oh, I have just done this fundamental schoolboy error. 2 dice instead of 1. First one, none. Second one, none. Third one, yes, here. So we move down to here. None. And we move down to here. It's 2 away. We do have 1 here. And we move across 2 away to here. We have none, and then we move here. That's 2 away. We have 1 here. And then we move here. We do have 1. This might be quite hypnotic to watch. Yeah, and some of these random things, they do it all for you. And I think, what a waste, because there's something quite charming and therapeutic about rolling up your own. You imagine doing the whole of this. It might be a bit. I've done it before. I've done it before myself. So this one, yeah, we have 1 here. I better concentrate instead of talking. Here, it's not simple. It's not like the Dungeons and Dragons ones where you're mapping, and I can just be whittering away as I put my scribblings down on the map. But this is a bit more intense because I've got to actually think. So here, this is looking quite good actually. And our last one, because we started here, we didn't get anything. So let's see if we get a system. We do. Okay, so when you think of it, there's 19 hexes there that we've covered. And we have now got 2, 5, and another 4, that's 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 out of 19. So that's well over, that's over 50%, isn't it? Yeah, so reasonably well populated. Okay, good. Next stage. 4, homeworlds. Now, this is what I thought. I know when I'd mentioned homeworlds in, I think, the first one about character creation, I said, right, these homeworlds, they represent Imperium worlds, and they're not in this subsector. We don't bother having to map them. But I thought it might be quite interesting to maybe have the chance of having maybe 1 or 2 of them actually in this subsector, and not necessarily like all of them and quite close to here, but maybe just 1 or 2 popping up, because actually during the character creation we came up with some quite interesting worlds actually. Yeah, we had what did we have? Let's get my sheet out. We had this awful one, Primax, which was, that sounded like an absolute horror. You know, that's where Kira came from, and we said that's the reason why she was so a bit psychotic. She had these terrible predators, you know, insectoid type giant things going around chopping them in half, and you know, milking those aphids. You know, what a life. So that sounded quite interesting. And we had Bifrost, which was Bastion's one, and that was like a cold desert. We didn't know whether it had atomics or something. And I'll have to actually go back to some of the video footage on that, because I don't know whether we went into some detail on it. And Vespasian, which was a kind of this kind of paradise, kind of beautiful planet, and Fiora was just getting bored to death. Maybe Vespasian isn't maybe such a good one for a traveller adventure, but you never know, there might be something going on there. And then Piraeus, we didn't really do very much. That's a rich world. So anyway, any one of those might pop up. So I have a mechanism to reflect that, and it's called the Homeworlds seeding mechanism. So there is a chance that the character's homeworld generated in character creation might actually be located within the subsector. So there's me counter. This will happen. Not a lot, because I want to try and be consistent, but I kind of reflected, I think, a bit on that, and I just thought that maybe it's a wasted opportunity. So check once per tier outwards from the starting world, and if this occurs, only assign for systems in the direction of the Imperium. So the way it will occur, if I roll a 1 on a d6 for tier 1, I will get a homeworld there. And when we go to tier 2, if I roll a 1 or a 2, we'll get 1 homeworld. And then I'll just randomly select which one. So it's probably best if I just show you what I'm actually on about. So for tier 1, it's these worlds here. So the direction of the Imperium is here, 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 and not here, because we're going there. So if I do get one, I got a 1 on a d6, and I'll just be randomly selecting them. Actually, I won't be doing that one because that's tier 2. Sorry, I went a bit evil there. So let's see, at 1 and 6, we have one of the homeworlds. So we don't. Okay, so that's our first check. And then for tier 2, we will check whether we have one. And it's a 1 or a 2 on a d6, we have a homeworld. So we do. Oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, so we will randomly select one of these 4. So we'll have to use a D, effectively this is like a D4. I don't have a D4. Well, I do actually. You know, this is Traveller, and pretend you're not seeing this. We could use a D6 and ignore the 5 and the 6, but let's just use a D4 because we've got one, and it's going to be one of these planets. So what is it? It's number 3, Vespasian. It's Vespasian. It's the beautiful, it's got lovely mountains, you know, beautiful blue sky, just a bit dull. But you know, everybody comes here maybe for a bit of tourism, and I think Fiora was dying to get off world. Yeah, she was just thought it was a bit dull. But then Fiora could be, she could have been a bit of a rebel rouser in her youth, and maybe, just be like a normal place, or maybe just like putting the place down a bit. It's actually quite nice. So we have Vespasian as one of our tier 2. So the only ones it can be are in that zone. So this is all tier 1 here. We'll just do a bit of shading just to make it clear. That's tier 1. And tier 2 is opposite shading. So it's here. And the only ones it can be, because I suppose as we go out, and if we went in that direction, I think that might be a bit more of a stretch, that one. I think it's going to be between these 3 here. That as an outlier, maybe, but we've got plenty of candidates here. It's if we didn't have any, I might say, well, we'll include that in the population. It's definitely not going to be this, because if we go in this direction, we're not going towards Imperium space. And this from here, yeah, it's probably going to hit non-Imperium space. It's maybe moving not really in the direction, but it's a bit of a liberal interpretation. I think I'm maybe just the semantics here. Let me do, we'll do 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6. So we can get a D6 again. And let's see if we get a Vespasian in our, and we do, we get a Vespasian here. So I can put Vespasian. So we've got Fiora's homeworld, only two parsecs away from our homeworld here. Right, so that's that mechanic. And when we come to tier 3, we'll obviously roll again, and tier 4 we'll roll again, and tier 5, and by that stage we might have exhausted all the homeworlds. There's a good chance that they're not going to come up because it's quite a low probability. But then we bucked it there. Right, surrounding worlds. Name any worlds that require 1 at this stage. Starport types are not determined. So I had that random naming mechanism. At this stage, we're not going to bother with the starports, because I want to map the starports as a separate exercise, probably after we've designed the world. So I have that as to come back to it after we've done our home world, just so I've got a bit more context, because I think maybe that's a bit too much detail about the surrounding area. And maybe just have names in the frame and know what worlds are around about. So to do that, I actually expanded this, but I haven't taken a print out of it, unfortunately. I've got a few more names of planets, because we had that list that we used. Let's see how far we get, and if I run out of names, I'll print out my other one and we can finish it off. But let's maybe do the tier 1 ones first with this one. Let's do that, and then we can do these other worlds next session when I print it out. So the name of this planet here, and we did our mechanic where the columns were determined by the red dice. So that's the middle column, and 1 is not going to be a Vespasian again. So we'll keep it middle column, and it is 4 Xandor. So this planet's called Xandor. This planet here is middle column 5, and that's called Raynor's World. So who is Raynor? Raynor's World. Okay, we don't have anything around here, so our next one is this one. And that's column 1, item 2, Martigan. Martigan is here. And yeah, our last one for the time being. I wonder if we've got time maybe to How many have we got left? Yeah, I think we'll do that as a little thing later on. That's middle column 1. We're dying for Vespasian. Let's roll it again. End column 4. All right, okay, that's called Far Cry. Far Cry. Far Cry. Okay. Right, so we have we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to go. Let's keep them for excuse me, for for our next session. Okay. Right, back to the checklist. Right, world generation checklist. Commence this for the starting world and incorporate the specific amendments and background tables where noted. Okay. Right, so this is where we get into the actual crunch stuff. Once we've done all this, I've gone through all the detail, we come back and kind of do the finishing touches on this overall checklist. We give the subsector name. We name the subsector and the neighboring adjacent regions of space. So we'll give this subsector a name. I've got a few names in the go, and then we'll name this region and this region and this region and this region, just so that we've got an overall context. And we'll try to do that all randomly. I must admit, I have been struggling for inspiration for, Spinrad Marches sounds great, and that kind of stuff. And I was thinking maybe the shadow nebula for this thing. But then a nebula is maybe a kind of like where you have nursery stars and stuff like that, and it's just maybe not the right thing. So I'm not really comfortable about the things on offer. So once we've got the subsector named and the neighbouring adjacent regions of space, I just thought, well, the campaign has now officially started. That'll be us off. I was trying to give myself a bit of humor. Congratulations on reaching this stage. This is a homage to Starship Troopers. Would you like to know more? You always got that in those public information films where they were squashing bugs, but children were doing that sort of thing, or they were doing all sort of experiments. Would you like to know more? That was like they were advertising big sort of propaganda type stuff. This big fascistic kind of state mechanism. Okay. Right, so we drill down into World Generation Checklist. And I have, just as an overview, and I know this might sound a wee bit on the theoretical side at the start, but we will get into the kind of the number crunching, getting into the details towards the end of this session, and definitely in the next one. This will probably go on maybe for 3, I think. We'll see. So when I'm doing this checklist that I alluded to on page 88, I think it was, the big double spread that we've got. And we've got this is the detail that we go through. I have some little amendments and enhancements and tweaks that I do just to add in some clarifications to that process and to give me a bit of interpretation and spin of what some of these statistics mean. So just to give you a resume of that, these additional stages are performed after using the Traveller checklist. Note, ignore conflicting and nonsensical results or reduce their influence on world generation. So that's my get out clause. If the results are crazy and we can't resolve them, just ignore them or reduce their influence. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, because I think I'll be able to get everything in its context and in its place, and that'll be the challenge. Let's lay down a challenge and say, we're not going to ignore anything that's randomly generated will will happen. But we could maybe just modify its impact. And that's what we can do with a bit of common sense. So the only constraint I'm going to have is that for the starting world, the only constraint imposed is the need to have a Class C starport 1 to 4 on a D6 or a Class B 5 to 6. So I've limited what we're going to have starport wise for the starting world. And then I have a few additions of things like temperature when we're doing atmosphere. And I took that from the Mongoose up-to-date version. I thought, oh, what a nice addition. And they had a very simple table for temperature. And also what the Mongoose version had something that just made the government a bit more sophisticated, because it had this generation for factions. And again, it was just a nice little simple table. I've kind of pinched that. I have something that I call myself, which is my Imperial Index, and that shows you the kind of level of the influence of the Imperium on that planet, whether it has direct control or it is an independent. It ranges. And then I have a political situation, which shows you what the stance of the place is when we look at it. And then the real cracker, if you're looking at it from a sci-fi kind of point of view, and this is something that I was really trying to do with my my first video, and say I want to have a lot of my influences coming into this directly, and it will be in this kind of the way I like my sci-fi, which is very much rooted in a kind of 1970s outlook of what and also just the way that they looked at technology at that time through those eyes. So things like, you know, Space 1999, the view was back in the 70s when they were producing this thing, was that we would have you know, moon bases on the moon, and we'd be flying around in Eagles which went at like 15% of the speed of light. You know, it's that type of thing. You know, it was really quite phenomenal, some of the technology, but I want to have that kind of view of technology. You know, maybe they're all running around in flares, and you know, they've got this kind of bell-bottom trousers on. You know, maybe the fashion hasn't really kind of kept up to speed, but I think on the technology it's still going to be really quite cutting edge, but it's through a perspective of the 1970s. So it might be quite interesting to see how that actually works. You know, certainly, you know, if you look at, there's one thing that I was laughing at, you know, and here we go. Tech. Here's the tech level, and for tech level 7 is now, back in 1977, they reckon tech level 7 was that time. So 1970 to 1979, and this is what you could get. You could get a body pistol. That's fine. Mesh and flak jacket. Okay, so flak jacket, that probably was around at the time. And mesh is like a new type substance, so that's ahead of the game. Pulse lasers, my goodness. Grenade launcher, that's okay. Yeah, we do that. A Model 2 computer, a hand calculator. So you could get, you know, I think this was cutting edge. This is cutting edge technology, tech level 7. That's kind of what the computers are like too, but massive ones. You slap your cassette in. So that's what a Model 2 computer is. And then we come across 7 non-starships. What's that all about? Is that going to be things like Eagles and you know, things that can fly around in the planetary system? You know, this was quite ahead of its time. And solar energy. You know, we didn't have, solar energy wasn't very efficient. It still isn't very efficient, really. You know, the solar cells aren't really generating what they should do. So you see what I mean? That this view of technology is kind of skewed by probably the optimistic view of what technology, what developments were going to happen. You know, they thought that we would have laser carbines between 1980 and 1989, and we'd have laser rifles by 2000. Things like ABLAT, which is something that's to do with, you know, anti-laser weaponry. You know, it's almost like a paradigm shift in our technology was viewed then, and that's what's been kind of manipulated into into the travel universe. So I'm quite keen on that. I quite like it. And hopefully I'm going to be able to reflect that. And this themes and features thing, that's going to amplify it, because when I show it to you, hopefully that will show you a bit of excitement. And I really have to put a bit of a health warning on it, that it can't. It's not going to just going to be used willy-nilly. It's going to be a very carefully and a controlled experimental basis for this. So let me just finish this, and then I'll maybe just give you a quick overview of that. Not go into any detail, and for my next video we'll really go into the detail, and hopefully I've got your interest, certainly with the themes and features. I think you'll quite like that. And then I have a questionnaire called Standard Questions, where I cycle through the key dimensions checklist. Now, dimensions are things that I think, like, say, like the economy, and we can use the trade classifications and things like that. And I just ask fundamental questions like, what are the raw materials? What's the economic system? You know, what's the basis of the economy? And then society and culture, the physical environment, and I use all the planetary parameters to try to ask some fundamental questions about, well, what's the food chain like? What's the climate like? You know, all that kind of stuff. And when you see it, it'll you know, it's easy for me to, well, it's not easy. It's theoretical just now, but when you see it in practice, you'll understand. And then once we come to the end of all the planetary stuff, we've got all our features and our themes. We've answered all our questions in the standard questionnaire. We determine the travel zone of the planet. So we match the details generated during the world creation to the hazard or threat level. So we'll get a good feel at the end of it of just how dangerous this planet is. And then we can say, is it an amber zone, which is kind of mildly dangerous, and just you use caution. You know, it's maybe like going to, say, the Middle East just now. Like your embassy will say use caution, but then you wouldn't go to like Ukraine, because that's probably like a red travel zone for us, because it's a war zone. So that's what a red would be. And once we've done everything, there's just one final thing that we do, is generate 3 prominent NPCs on the planet. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail, but I thought that'd be quite a nice touch, just to get some personalities, some big prominent personalities, that we can either have further down the line, and I'll just use the patron tables to generate that. Okay. Right. I'm just checking to see time-wise. Yeah, I think for today, we've maybe just done enough on the overview. What we're going to do next time is I will refer immediately to page 88. Page 88 of this. No, it's not page 88, page 85. And we'll start going through for our world, our starting world, which we haven't even named yet. We will in fact, why don't we do that? Just so that we've got something in our head, because that is really, I'm supposed to do that at what stage? Name world, stage 3. But let's jump the gun a wee bit. We know we're going to have a starting world. Let's find out what its name is. So we'll consult our little printout of names, and ignore all the ones that have been chosen before, and we'll get our selection dice out. Let's see what we get. So we'll get our dice tray out. And we have the middle column and 5. So that's Raina's world, so we can't have that. It's already been done. We have N column and 2, Tarot. So N column, 2, Tarot. So Tarot is our starting word. That's okay. I think that's an okay Tarot, as in tarot card. maybe it's gonna, you know, tarot card, like, it's like all to do with mystery and almost like it's a bit superstitious, and you know, what do these cards mean and stuff like that. Maybe this planet's got a lot of mystery and whatever, and you know, maybe the name sums up anything, or maybe not. It's just, maybe you shouldn't read too much into a name. And apart from Vespasian, where we almost like said, yeah, that's a nice place just because it's got a nice name. So tarot, yeah, okay, right. Let's leave that there, and what I'll do is we can get cracking on the design of tarot, and go through all these different steps, and find out, you know, just exactly how 1970s sci-fi it is by the end of it, and see who the big personalities that live on it are, and it's just what the sort of environment is for our characters to start on, and you know, when they're sitting in the starbase, the starport, in the Dragon Hotel. Okay, good. Right, enjoyed that. Hope you did, and I will see you next time.